Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to start by telling you something that you probably don't know about me. But before I moved to Brazil, I used to live in Japan. So I was only going to stay 3 months in Japan. In my mind, 3 months was enough. And then it became 6 months, and then it became a year, and then it became 2 years, and then 4 years. So I really, really loved Japan, the Japanese culture. And a lot of people do ask me, did you speak Japanese? And yes, I could speak Japanese when I lived in Japan.
すごくないですか？この鏡で私の顔が見えます。
But it's been like 8 or 9 years since I spoke Japanese. So I've forgotten most of my Japanese. So I moved to Brazil, and I remember that Brazil was just so different to Japan. Like pretty much, you've got two cultures like almost extremes. They're so different. However, there are a few similarities between Brazilian culture and Japanese culture that are really different to British culture. And what I want to do today is talk about 3 of those. So I'm going to start by talking about the first difference. And to do this, I'm going to need some sad music. So when I was 19 years old, I remember I was living at home with my mum and dad, and they sat down with me and said, "Look, Andrew, when are you leaving home?" And when I tell my students this story here in Brazil, I can see that they're just so shocked. Because here in Brazil that doesn't happen. And guess what? In Japan as well, it doesn't happen. So what I found is that in Brazil, a lot of people in Sao Paulo especially, or Rio de Janeiro, they live at home with their mum and dads until I guess 30s, like the average age. If you disagree with me, write down in the comments below. And there are a lot of exceptions. So there are a lot of people who maybe they were in the countryside and then they moved to a city in like a bigger city like Sao Paulo, Rio, Brasilia. But the majority of people, I think here in the big cities, 30 is okay to still be living with your mum and dad. And in Japan, it's quite cultural that unless you're married, you're probably still going to be living at home with your mum and dad. But in England, in like the UK, people like 19, that's like the perfect age for them to leave home. Like, get out of my house. So that's like the first similarity that I noticed between Brazil and Japan. The second one is that you guys, so I know it's not specific just for Brazil and just for Japan, but here, like, you have this job in Brazil and in Japan that we don't have in England, and that is somebody who sits and they press the buttons in the elevator. Like, this is a real job here in Brazil, and it was a real job in Japan, and I know you have it in like the Philippines and other countries, but like, guys, we don't have this in my country. It's amazing. Like, I would love to be that person who just sits all day. Where are you going? So the third thing that I found quite interesting is that you guys in Brazil and the Japanese, you don't like to say no. So when I was in Japan, I would make plans with my Japanese friends and say, hey, let's do this. And they would say, yeah, maybe. I'm like, well, is that a maybe yes or is it a maybe no? Like, it's maybe, and maybe generally means like no. But here in Brazil, it's like, let's do this. And my Brazilian friends say, yeah, let's do it. And I'm like, yeah. And then when the time comes, they're like, oh no, I'm sorry, I can't. And I have a Brazilian friend, and he said, Andrew, the rudest thing I've ever heard is when I watched X Factor and Simon Cowell says no. Like, so direct.
What do you think I'm going to say to you?
No.
Correct. Goodbye.
But I guess that's just the nature of living in Japan or living in Brazil. So those are the 3 things that I found really interesting about the similarities between the two cultures. I love Brazil and I love Japan. I was fascinated living in Japan, and I continue to be fascinated living in Brazil. So if you have any experience of these two cultures and you noticed any other similarities, let me know in the comment section below. Otherwise, I will speak to you guys next week. Don't forget to hit subscribe to my channel, and I will speak to you soon.